They also spot one of the enemy's BMP-2s, which, to be fair, is a lot closer than I thought it would be. Our M107 operator is moving into position. The M107, I feel like, I'm not really sure if it would be a very great to use against a BMP-2, but hey, if you're not going to use it, it's never going to work, so you might as well try. Gets a shot and a partial penetration. The second shot is a rear hull penetration, and the BMP-2 is getting the hell out of dodge. There's also, for anyone who's paying attention, a BMP-2 charging across the screen back here, going left to right at full speed. This is what I was afraid of and why I didn't really want to mess around with the far right flank. Now it seems like we're going to be forced to... Alright, howdy boyos, welcome back to more Combat Mission Shock Force 2. Today we are going to try something a little different. I'm not going to be doing a live gameplay where I comment over every single second of what I'm doing. I'm going to be showing you the battle and the mission, giving my units orders, but then we're going to go and use the replay function to get really cool moments from the battle. Now this will basically mean that you won't see the entire battle. I'll just try and show the more important things, the more interesting things, and obviously the explosions, a lot of the gunfire that's going to happen, obviously. If you like that, let me know in the comment section. It is going to be a big switch from this like 2-hour potential video, which this easily could be, even though I only have 50 minutes in game, to probably about a 30 to 40 minute at the most video, but obviously in the end we'll see what the timer ends up at. With that being said, let's take a look at the briefing. Really, there isn't much of a briefing. It is early in the morning. Our job is to basically come from two sides onto a river crossing, which is held by hostile troops. We don't have a lot of units available to us. It's about 7 Strykers and a couple mortars, really, and obviously some infantry to go along with the Strykers. Now the map is very simple. We have a couple of MGS Strykers, which are mobile gun system vehicles, over here, and our mostly infantry-based force with some support Strykers with 50 cals and Mark 19s on the other side. Our objectives are to keep our casualties low while touching the hospital, armory, and school objectives. So over here is where the infantry mostly will be coming from. We have a machine gun section, 3 squads of infantry, and a commander unit. On the other side, we have 3 Stryker MGSs, a Humvee with a command element. We have a sniper section, which actually comes with 2 M107 50 caliber sniper rifles, a lieutenant colonel who wants to be here as described in the briefing, and we have a Humvee who is carrying, I believe, a platoon leader or the company HQ. So kind of a lot of high-ranking individuals around here. The main thing we know about the enemy is that they have occupied this hill, and there can be up to 9 BMP-2s inside or outside of the river crossing area. Now, our Strykers are not amphibious. Obviously, they could ford a small little bit of water, but they can't actually make it through this deeper river. So we're going to go ahead and give some orders, and we'll be right back. So right off the bat, I haven't really moved the infantry-focused Stryker group a lot. I want to slowly make my way down the road into the town. And right away, the enemy have called in artillery, either mortars or rockets, just on the hill to our southwest. Now, luckily for us, that's not where we are. I do have some troops here dismount and try and take up a position on the second floor of this building. It is actually a M240 team who are going to be very great at hopefully suppressing anything that may or may not end up popping over this ridge in the future. The reason that I haven't really moved these guys yet is because I'm not really sure where all their BMP-2s are, and I'm really afraid that if any of these Strykers get caught out in the open by a BMP-2, it's going to be game over. Now that wasn't all the action that's going on. An enemy ATGM position on the hill was revealed after they shot and missed at one of my Stryker MGSs. Now you can see one of the MGSs not too happy about that. So it is actively trying to engage with the main gun this entrenched ATGM position. At this point, I'm not really sure how effective this ATGM would be if it hit a striker with a cage on it. You can see the round from the striker landed close to, but didn't necessarily knock out any crew on the ATGM. It is, however, very possible that the ATGM was knocked out. At the moment, though, suppression is kicking in. The machine gun, coaxial machine gun on the striker, is taking care of at least the suppression on his ATGM team. Try and move the other strikers into a position where they can engage this team before it knocks out a striker or the Humvee with the command element in it. So the 3 MGSs on the far side of the river have finally lined up. However, the ATGM position got unpinned, and if you were paying attention there very closely, it fired right as the MGS scored a direct hit. We'll try and go back to that exact moment right there. This is, you can see his helmet coming off. The striker lands a direct hit basically on the position, but the ATGM comes out. Now, because it's not a fire and forget missile, like, for example, the Javelin, this missile, however, turns out to basically lose its guidance. The operator and the system are, not really active anymore. The missile goes into the dirt. ATGM position on the hill is secured. Our team of strikers also knocked out this enemy truck. I think it's a Ural. It's just here to probably provide supplies. So, truck down. We did spot some BMPs driving around further back into town. However, they have not really been dealt with. We're going to have to move our strikers up, get them into position where they can hopefully do some more engaging. So, to my big surprise, my MGSs are not capable of spotting any of the BMPs in town early on. The striker carrying the sniper unit and one of the platoon elements actually did manage to spot a BMP-2 and is now trying to, for its life of it, trying to suppress this BMP so it doesn't cause any horrible damage. You can see the tiny ATGM on top rotating, and it's going to fire. Now the thing is, we don't know what's going to happen to it because the turn is over. I think we just heard an explosion. Actually, we can go back here. I think we just heard an explosion. And it looks like it very much so hit, actually, a position here behind the medical clinic or the hospital. Now, that's not the only contact that happened. As our strikers are engaging infantry or just a Ural at the burning Ural we showed earlier, a BMP-2 is spotted. This striker immediately realizes the danger of a BMP-2 on its flank, loads the armor piercing, and gets a devastating hit, causing an engine fire on the BMP-2. On the opposite ridge, from the town and from the strikers, a BMP-2 comes into view. It's only for a little bit of time, and it looks as if he's trying to throw dust up to create sort of a cover or concealment between him and the strikers. However, a hit from the striker knocks out the BMP-2, and a second one makes sure it is not coming back. This is the second BMP-2. There is still quite a few left. Earlier, one was spotted just off to the right here. You can see the dust cloud actually coming from it. It wasn't taken out, and the strikers had some trouble acquiring that target. So one of the two sniper teams is trying to get into position to overwatch this side of the river. And not only are they taking very sporadic rifle fire, but it's very inaccurate. They also spot one of the enemy's BMP-2s, which, to be fair, is a lot closer than I thought it would be. Our M107 operator is moving into position. The M107, I feel like, I'm not really sure if it would be a very great rifle to use against a BMP-2, but hey, if you're not going to use it, it's never going to work, so you might as well try. Gets a shot and a partial penetration. The second shot is a rear hull penetration, and the BMP-2 is going to hell out of dodge. There's also, for anyone who's paying attention, a BMP-2 charging across the screen back here, going left to right at full speed. This is what I was afraid of and why I didn't really want to mess around with the far right flank. Now it seems like we're going to be forced to, because not only that BMP, but potentially this BMP are going to be making our way over to the infantry on the far right. So I sadly made a mistake, and instead of recording the last turn, which one thing happened that wasn't really huge, this turn is kind of not a great turn for me. First of all, an RPG comes out of nowhere, a very good long-distance shot RPG, and knocks out this striker. It's gone. The crew is panicked. The vehicle is disabled. That's not necessarily the worst thing. It is annoying that we lose 1/3 of our heavy firepower. What's arguably worse is that this sniper team, what's obviously pinned and suppressed, is about to be shot at not by just a machine gun all the way back on the hill, but by this BMP-2. Now I did move one of my strikers over here, and thank God the crew is paying attention and does a devastating 105mm shell right in the front of this BMP-2. You could just see another BMP-2, potentially the same one that was driving there earlier, driving right into view of this striker, and sadly enough, instead of getting a direct hit on that one, the crew manages to just miss this BMP and hit the roof of one of the buildings there, but they massively saved the day by getting that direct hit, which, granted, it's right here. It's a direct hit, but the smoke from the BMP-2 and the smoke from the explosion hide the fate of that BMP, but not for very long. You can see a second black cloud of smoke start arising from basically the exact spot where that BMP-2 was just hit. So the only real good explanation is that it got shot and destroyed. So there's this pesky machine gun nest on the hill. I attempted to fire a javelin at it. However, it looks like the javelin missed, or just, you can see it got it right here. It looks like it just straight up bounced off the ground back into the air. The machine gun up there, I believe it's a Dishkin, sadly enough, will continue to harass us, at least for now. I also have a Mark 19 Striker right behind over here, who's trying to engage it, but it doesn't really seem to be doing any usable damage for us. So, very much aware there are still multiple BMPs around. A BMP-2 gets spotted, and my Striker immediately acquires the target, engages it, and gets it right before it makes it behind that structure. The infantry on the BMP are dismounting. That is another one down for us. Alright, the beginning of the next turn starts kind of badly. While we're under heavy artillery fire, my Striker spots the enemy BMP-2 and does take him out, which is awesome. Very good for us. This artillery barrage, however, knocks one of the men of the sniper team, or one of the two sniper teams that I have, unconscious. Actually, just straight up KIAs him. And the thing is, they are super pinned. I think it doesn't help that they got hit by the artillery. So instead of them crawling back and throwing smoke, or I should say throwing smoke and then crawling back, they're cowering. And the second they try and maneuver and get out of there, instead of throwing the smoke, which this is the purple thing, is the smoke arc, which they're not throwing, which is really frustrating. One of the members is about to catch a straight round and goes down, who happens to be the M107 guy. So we're going to try crawl down the ridge, get into cover for right now, and then hopefully be able to later on get both of these guys out of there and make sure that the wounded guy doesn't turn into a KIA. So let's see what happens in the next turn. Alright, so nothing ridiculously crazy happens in this turn. I did, however, do a pretty decent push on the infantry side of things. I split up some of the squads that I got into 5- and 4-man teams, and this way my intention was to limit potential casualties. I almost said cavities. Limit potential casualties, and also to make sure that if anything were to happen, my teams could then try and support each other. So I had one of the Strykers push forward and deploy smoke. And if I'm not mistaken, the Strykers have a really interesting type of smoke, which doesn't allow thermal to see through it. Now the smoke is basically dissipated here, but the majority of my force got across. The Strykers even blocking the road a little bit, so these units are definitely safe, at least until here. They could have been destroyed from this little crossing. But the suppressive fire from multiple Strykers, including the 50 cal here, we have 2 of the Mark 19s just further down, we're able to keep basically all the forces that were looking at this area, specifically that Dishkin gunner. As you can see, he is definitely not sticking his head up anytime soon. So the main thing in this turn was an engagement between this house and the house just across the river they fired an RPG at this house, and I actually told these two guys to target briefly this house on the opposite side of the river. So another RPG shot comes in, and we try to repay them with a javelin. Now the javelin isn't necessarily built for stuff like this. It's definitely not built to just blow up houses all the time, especially because you want to save them for the enemy vehicles. But considering I have quite a few javelins, and I have still 2 of those Striker MGSs, I thought it was kind of worth lobbing a javelin their way. Now the issue is, as you could see, the guy did go in a crouching position, but it wasn't enough. This team is now out of javelins, and they're about to catch, I guess, their 3rd RPG of this turn, and it's not going to end up very well for them. One of them gets hit and is wounded on the ground, so we have to deal with him at some point during this turn. We do have most of our vehicles now on a particular line, trying to deal with the entrenched infantry all over the far side of the river. The closer side of the river is relatively clear, though I'm expecting to find at least one more BMP here, depending, or considering the black smoke, which is something the BMP2s are armed with, but it is going relatively well, I think. So this is the team that took the RPGs earlier and fired the javelin, and I'm trying to figure out what to do with them here, and then one of them gets hit by yet another RPG, making this team basically only have 60% of their strength, and also 2 of them are wounded. So we're going to have to pull these guys back and work to get these guys mediced up as soon as possible. So 2 of my Strikers on the right side, one of them is actually reloading, and they notice a team that's been firing RPGs and other rounds at them. So the Mark 19 Striker makes quick work of one of the members of a hostile team inside that house, but the other one left cowering for his life. There are still multiple contacts in multiple buildings in the town. I'm not really sure how to work those out of there, because I do not want to necessarily level the city with artillery, though we do have large mortars we could easily use to knock out, or at least scare the living daylights out of them, but it might not be the most sufficient way of dealing with them. Over towards the other side of the river, a BMP2 gets spotted, and very quickly and on point gets taken out by this Striker MGS, who makes us a perfect line of sight between all these buildings to knock it out, which, if I calculated correctly, we are at 8 knocked out BMP2s. We got 5 over here and 3 on this side of the map. So there's realistically only maybe 1 or 2 left, if not all of them done. The issue now is going to become for us to actually move into the city, and we are kind of stuck over here with the majority of our infantry, considering a lot... Oh, there goes a catastrophic explosion on the BMP2. A lot of infantry is holed up just over here near the 2 river crossings, and it's going to be a really costly battle for our infantry to get across without us having a decent base of fire set up. Alright, so we've given orders to advance. We are taking RPG rounds still from the town. I've given all my Strikers brief target orders. I've even ordered this team here to launch their javelin at one of these 2 buildings over here, because they keep shooting at us from there, whether it's RPGs or just rifle fire. So javelin coming out, and going to be a direct hit on the building, hopefully causing some distress, but it seems like those personnel are not really in too much of an issue. So we've made this line of Strikers. Our infantry is reloading their javelin. They're setting up. They're still targeting that compound with 203s. Now on the other side of town, a BMP can be heard. RPGs are coming out on our Striker. And a BMP shows up out of nowhere. It's spotted. Our Striker at MGS is ready. Takes it out with the frontal hit. And manages to, well, I don't want to use the word dodge because that implies that they did something, manages to escape fate a second time when an RPG lands right next to it, but isn't a hit whatsoever. So a small push happened on the infantry side of things, popped some more smoke, had multiple smaller teams push through this smoke while buddy aiding some of those guys who were downed earlier. Strikers moving into a position to get sort of more of a higher position. It's these 2 buildings in the back that I'm still really afraid of right now. We have multiple teams who've made it. One team here, one team's about to make it in there. We have a team on the wall. I'm trying to get as many of these teams inside, but first, before I do anything, I'll have to put a striker here, deploy smoke so they can't see, or just suppress this to absolute kingdom come. Now, one thing I didn't notice, but 2 turns ago, my 50 caliber striker on the other side was sadly knocked out. However, didn't get that on camera because I definitely didn't realize that happened. I am personally really proud of this turn. Pretty much everything worked out exactly as I wanted to. Infantry is pushing out of the open. Striker gets into position, pops smoke, and does it right as the infantry behind it starts to cross. We are suppressing these buildings with strikers, infantry, and 2 M240 teams, as well as this mosque-looking building, which is also being suppressed. Infantry is crossing, and we are about to occupy our 4th building in the town. Well, whenever the team gets in there, we'll have 4 buildings occupied. I mean, they are taking some very light fire from, it looks like, the weapons depot building. If anything does pop up there, this Mark 19 Striker will definitely make short work of it. We are having some fire incoming from the Striker on the other side of the river, but it's nothing really heavy to worry about. This team is about to make it inside the building, and we have occupied our first area in the town that I feel sufficiently safe about to say that it's pretty clear in here. There are reinforced positions like these trenches we're going to have to deal with in a second, but we're doing good. This turn was pretty heavy on the firefight department. I think the highlight was a javelin going out on the weapons depot, and not necessarily again causing any mass destruction, but the javelins are really awesome. And look at this. Those guys in there immediately duck down after a javelin hits. And another thing that we did was accidentally spot this 3-man headquarters section, which I'm not sure if they're just a headquarters section. They do have a radio. They might also be spotting, either for artillery or, you know, I guess in general, trying to mark out where our men are. I'm hoping to deal with these guys ASAP so they stop calling in mortars and have less knowledge about where we are. So I gave a bunch of move orders to the men to try to move further into the town, and this team doesn't make it out of there in time, and one of their members does get taken out by an RPG. He's not KIA, so we can potentially bring him back. Earlier, one of my 240 members over here bought it on the roof, so we're due to deal with a single casualty over here. The vehicle crew of the MGS that was knocked out has been promoted to a sniper team. I had them crawl all the way over here, and if you remember this sniper team just in front of them, well, they lost their M107 gunner and a spotter, and basically I had them, the vehicle crew, come over here, buddy aid the down sniper team, and then pick up their M107. Now, it wouldn't be me playing this game if I didn't just make at least one huge mistake, and you're about to see it right here. I'm trying to get them into this building without vehicle or infantry cover, and for some reason they're sticking outside of the windows, and they basically all get demolished. This is a really bad place for them to be in. Without cover, no assistance or suppressive fire on this house, and we're going to have to take 2 KIA and 2 wounded, with the last member also turning wounded. So we have 3 wounded and 2 KIA over here, and that was 100% on me to not have a vehicle to cover. But now we know there's infantry in this building, which is a little bit in the bloody way of finding out. But we're going to have to put some suppressive fire on this because we cannot just send more infantry down this way. This turn is also full of things happening. First of all, I realized one of my 40 Mike Strykers, or Mark 19 Strykers, is completely out of ammo. I'm going to deploy him here, get the crew out, and make them sort of a makeshift medic. They're going to go work over, make sure these guys are all mediced up. My MGS Striker is moving up, and the 50 cal Striker over here is suppressive firing this building where this initial team got destroyed from. Then we are moving further into the town, as well as we've called in a direct 120mm mortar strike on the weapons depot. Hopefully will help us destroy the guys inside. We are in the town, we're obliterating this machine gun team, as well as we've spotted this entire squad of hostile combatants over here. Now the MGS has something different to say about that, as for some miraculous reason, the RPG misses the striker, and the striker says, and just destroys the RPG gunner. The artillery is currently raging shots in on a weapon depot. I'm hoping it won't take too long, and a direct hit or two will mostly knock people in there, hopefully favorable towards us. Also, last but not least, this team has been pummeled by a striker, MGS, and a 50 cal, and at least one of their members is currently surrendering. Alright, so I was going to show you the artillery barrage next turn, but it looks like the hostiles have surrendered. We only lost 5 KIA and 8 wounded, with 2 of our vehicles knocked out, a 50 cal striker and a striker MGS. Now, kind of annoying. I was really hoping to take all of these guys and hopefully rescue a lot of them. There's a potential that some of these actually turned KIA after just counting as wounded in action earlier on. Now, the reason for their surrender is that basically every single unit still on the field was rattled, if not shaken, if not broken. As you can see it right here, rattled, I guess is empty, shaken, nervous, which is their leader, and a broken unit back here with basically nobody really able to provide any real resistance, all of them being rattled, broken, or shaken. This, in conjunction with the heavy artillery that would have hit the weapon depot, which I guess after the fact we can see there isn't really much or anyone left in there, we would have been able to knock out the very little remaining infantry that was there, pushed across the bridge, and pretty easily, without too many casualties, I hope, capture the area. They numbered 30 men okay versus our 56. We killed 10 times more of theirs, as well as a more than 4 times wounded. They even lost some men missing, which potentially may be some of them surrendering to us earlier on there. And they lost 9 BMP-2s, and I guess we don't really have to mention the UAZs or the Urals, but I guess in the end 3 Urals, but most of the 9 BMPs is going to weigh very heavily for us. So we captured all the objectives because they surrendered. Obviously they didn't capture or hold anything tight. We knocked out the BMP-2s, the specialist units, which I'm assuming might be the heavy machine gun and the ATGM on the hill. We even knocked out their HQ units. They did not manage to do enough points here, meaning they did knock out a striker MGS, they did knock out a striker IFV, they knocked out some of our infantry, but it definitely wasn't enough. And then they did not manage to get our casualties up above a certain number, and we kept ours below. I believe it was 10 or 20%. So not that bad. Honestly, the 5 killed could have been lower. I think we were about 2 or 3 killed. So, I mean, 3 men killed and 8 wounded, if we're not counting the fact that I couldn't buddy heal them in time, it's actually not that bad. I hope you guys enjoyed this different way of doing combat mission. It definitely allows me to make a little shorter videos, which might be more interesting for people to watch, because I know the 2.5-hour videos aren't necessarily something people want to watch all the time. If you like this, let me know in the comment section. Maybe we'll do some more Combat Mission Shock Force 2 or a Black Sea, like a video in this style very, very soon. Hope you guys enjoyed. Cheers.